Welcome, friends, to our first OpenFren AMA. In today's panel, we were going to discuss business partnerships in a Web3 world. We have some amazing panelists joining us today. We have Ayaz. I was going to give everyone a wave. Ayaz was the former Chief Platform Officer of Santander, one of the world's biggest banks with a market cap of $55 billion US. We have Jason Hitchcock, who worked on strategic partnerships at Twitch and is now the founder of a crypto hedge fund, To the Moon Capital, which I'm sure everyone will love that name in the audience. And last but not least, we have our second Jason Lee, COO of the OpenFren Foundation, which I'm sure everyone in the audience knows really well. OpenFren is one of the best and most popular blockchain technologies out there. So excited to have everyone here. So diving in, starting with Jason Lee, right? From my understanding, you became the COO of OpenFren earlier this year. So first, congrats. That's an amazing role.
Thank you.
But why don't you tell us what your main focus has been since you joined?
Yep. First off, I just want to welcome everyone and thank you for your excitement in this space. Really great people as well, and I'm really looking forward to see where this leads to. And I believe I met Mo and Billionaire Bear at the Study Under 30 event in Hong Kong, and actually that was my role in strategic partnerships and alliances with a different organization, and now I'm with OpenFren Foundation. So I'm glad that we're really talking about partnerships and getting into the meat of things. Now, why did I join the OpenFren Foundation? I think one big sort of motivating factor is the fact that we believe, as our founder, Professor Cyril Micheli said, building the borderless economy, and in a way solving the blockchain trilemma as well: scalability, decentralization, as well as security. And this role allows me as the COO to support and build partnerships to ensure that our programs are running and to be really mission-driven. And what I like is that the really mission-driven nature of OpenFren Foundation. And they always say that the Web3 space is a one-way street, right? The moment you come in from the traditional sector, you're here and you're here for good. So that's an area and why I like being a part of OpenFren Foundation and in this industry in general.
That's awesome. And you talked about partnerships. OpenFren has announced a range of partnerships recently, including a partnership with a racing team.
Yes.
How important have these partnerships been for the growth of the movement?
Yeah, no, I think partnerships are extremely important for a variety of reasons. I mean, one way is a form of posturing, is putting your positioning in what you stand for. And other forms could be more metrics-based, where it leads to an exact return on investment or some form of metric that we're following. So with the Envision Racing, I'm just going to give an example. Envision Racing is part of Formula E, and Formula E is known as a green sort of sports championship, compared to Formula One, right? So, and Envision Racing is actually a really green team because Envision, the company behind it, does wind turbines. So they call themselves the greenest team on the greenest grid, right? And the OpenFren Foundation, we want to commit ourselves to sustainability, climate change, and environmental impact. So we want to be hashtags of green crypto. So by sponsoring Envision Racing, we want to be a green crypto that supports the greenest team on the greenest grid. So that's one example of a partnership where it's a form of positioning, just as how various organizations have sponsored different kinds of stadiums and sports championship, and it's a way of positioning for them. And I'm sure there's some form of return on investment at the end of the day as well. Yeah.
So it would be the green crypto, right? Because I know, obviously, energy efficiency is one of the more contested issues in the area of Web3 and crypto. So you guys want to do that? Yeah.
That's right.
So in kind of moving further into that, right? Kind of talking about how you're using these partnerships to position you, kind of market positioning. What's interesting is we've got Jason Hitchcock here today, and in addition to his incredible experience at Twitch and Bebo, one of the things that really caught my eye initially with Jason is he's very active on Twitter. And a while ago, while he was working at Twitch, he shared a very interesting tweet that I'm just going to put on the screen very quickly. So I think while Jason was at Twitch, he made a request for a tool that could help you track companies. Who are they partnering on, right? And so now they've got the man here. Would love to ask him, what inspired this tweet?
Sure. Well, at the time, I mean, a big part of what I did was I would come up with, I would have to come up with ways to connect the dots between brands that Twitch wanted to work with and our audience and who were the streamers on Twitch. What did that world look like? And simply just knowing that, if I knew the streamers that already had deals in place with a bunch of brands, if I already knew, not just those streamers, just a bunch of celebrities, if I just kind of knew, and I could just search by, show me everybody that's doing stuff with Adidas and, Louis Vuitton, and I get, some, Venn diagram. I'm great, okay. Let's invite all of these people to our Louis Vuitton Fortnite event. No brainer.
Yeah.
It would be really easy to come up with ideas if I just had a better idea of who everybody was going to bat for. I could invite everybody together and we could all hit a home run together. But otherwise, it's a lot of fact finding. You could sort of come up with a lot of ideas where you have to fill in the blanks based on kind of the research that you do. So yeah, that's what was behind that tweet. I needed help brainstorming.
So sourcing, right? So that's kind of taking this question to Ayaz and both Jason Lee. You both very different companies. How have you dealt with sourcing in the past, right?
Well, I love the idea that Jason was just talking about. It's like a crunch base for partnerships in the sense with the ability to do Venn diagrams across it. Right? Frankly, from the world I came from, I was trying to solve even more basic problems. Of course, things are moving along very quickly. Came from the world of SAP, then to Google, and now Banco Santander after that. We were fixing what was known as the criminal role of partnerships to just build Barney partnerships, what we used to call Barney partnerships. So this is not going to make me very many friends with most of the BD community out there, but what we used to call Barney partnerships was I love you, you love me, let's do a press release and then forget about everything else. Right? And of course in the middle there's some nice dinners with wine bottles, etc., all of that stuff, but there's no real value to the customer or the community that's involved and so it was fixing that. And to that effect, in terms of research, it was largely by word of mouth. It was largely by gut that somebody on the other side had the same ethic and mindset that you were coming into the relationship with, and trying to find that one person who would stop you from going to all the send you to all the other tire kickers that you had to deal with. So the trick was almost you had to go fishing. You in a single. There was no real way to know how you could find that. And I think this whole idea of Crunchbase for partnerships and a Glassdoor for partnerships, I think two sides of a coin, would be an excellent way to sort of help people to move that forward. I don't know if Jason wants to add anything to that.
Yeah, no, I think in sourcing partnerships, you're either actively hunting and seeking a great partnership, or you're actually just receiving options and deals, right? So I think under the hood of Algren Foundation, Formula E was actually something that we sought after. So we actually looked into exploring a partnership specifically with Envision Racing. But then there are other partnerships that we've been receiving proposals as well. So for example, there are a number of research institutions, universities that have came to us and said, hey, I'm really keen to build on Algorand. I'm going to few PhDs getting into this piece of work. Can we partner together? And so the sourcing comes both ways. And I think the most important part of sourcing is actually just having a channel, right? And the channel could be on Twitter or on your website or whatnot. But if you have a channel for engagement, that's where it is. And just as how everyone's on Discord right now, just doing this, that's your channel engagement. That's a potential source of partnership as well. Yep.
It's interesting you mentioned, and it's very common for companies to have inbound partnership opportunities as well as going actively outbound, right? Yeah. And what's interesting for me is as you're doing that, either you're hunting or you're kind of receiving these opportunities, and usually you're doing both. It's this question of transparency, right? Because what do you really know about the company that's approaching you, or the company that you're looking to partner with, right? For example, you're looking to work with Envision Racing. Beyond what people say, how do you know if they're a reliable partner? And that's the big risk with these partnerships, right? Because you're basically relying, in a way, on word of mouth. And on that kind of topic of transparency, how have people in this panel dealt with that issue, right? Knowing if a partner can be reliable.
I'll take a shot at this because that's kind of where things have started from, and I'm sure some of you guys can add where things have evolved to. So what we ended up building was, you said it right, but it's not just a one way. We had a recruit mechanism that was both ways, listen as well as go out.
Yeah.
Right, actively. So either get inbounds and outbounds. At Google, we got more inbounds. At SAP, we spent more time doing outbounds, right? Because nobody wants to partner with that bigger beast if you're building a small startup. But you want to go after the customer base, but you don't know how to navigate it. So we had the recruit function, then we had the enable function. And we learned this way. And then the third one was, I used to call it the REM strategy: recruit, enable, and monetize. And of course, the minute I said monetize, everybody in the company would go, great, you can monetize. I said, no, it's not our monetization. It's their monetization. When they come in, how can they make money? I'm the beggar here. I'm the platform that is trying to attract people. How can they make money on my platform? And then I can make money from it as a future thing. So in that enable phase, we would have a vetting phase. We didn't have any other tools to go to vet the company. So even if, no matter whether we reached out to them or they came in, then we would take information from them. And that was a painful process, right? Collecting the information, collecting the documents, making sure that they pass muster for what we wanted to do in terms of solvency, that they were not a fly-by-night operator, that they had references. It would have been great to have something where we could actually just go readily check, like either a Glassdoor or even a simple thing like going and checking, like you have credit agencies and address verification and all of that, getting all that in one place. I'll let you guys go next.
I found it to be like when I was at Twitch, there was so much bureaucracy to deal with to do anything. And so if there was anything in my control, like that I did not need to put up, and that would be like extra vetting of partners, I would just be like, I don't want to do this. And so, because it's too much work. The challenge is doing the job and taking the actual shot at running some sort of experiment with somebody. And so I would rather take one small step forward with anybody than spend forever trying to verify if someone is the right person to go to the dance with. So that was the approach. And
that's a great point. At the same time, when you are putting customers, you're putting them in front of customers.
Yeah.
You have to know that they're so Celonis was 3 people when we brought them into my program. Celonis is now Germany's biggest unicorn, as an example, right? There were just 3 people when we brought Celonis. They wouldn't pass any other muster inside SAP. I can guarantee you that. Right? But that was the team that we were bringing in. We were allowing all these startups to come in. I just needed to know they knew how to spell.
Hey, Jason, actually, I wanted to throw that question back to you, right? Because in a year or two time, right, there's going to be more lack of transparency because there's pseudonymous or anonymous content. What are your thoughts on that, right?
Yeah.
What are we going to do when there's a bunch of how do we deal with anons, basically?
Yeah, that's right.
There's going to be new reputation systems, especially as people have wallet history. We're just going to see on-chain reputation form, and it's going to be even more reliable. I'll have a better idea of what you're up to, how often you're up to it. And I don't know, I can totally imagine in the future working with Algorand, and then Algorand being that was really great working with Jason, and then you give me a really great to work with token, and it's I just collect these BS NFTs that I can't do anything with. Maybe they're non-transferable, right? And then someone sees, whoa, you got a good job token from Algorand, Jason. Maybe we should do you get the deal. Wow, no brainer. I mean, like there's a company called like ArcX that's creating like on-chain, reputation systems right now to help protocols identify which users to like give incentives to airdrop to, and things like that. And like that's just the beginning.
And so I'd be remiss not to shill a little bit here, but everything you guys have been talking about today is something that we're actually building with OpenFren. And we're going to take basically a very commercial break, just showing people the platform that we're building, which is, Jason, you talked about sourcing, right? I agree. It's so hard to source. And so one of the things that we did build, we have this huge database, is the ability to, for example, look at a company and actually see what kind of partnerships they've done. Not only who they're working with, but also you can actually go down to and see location, dates, and so many other useful information. And another thing that's really interesting, I think Jason Hitchcock just mentioned, was this idea of on-chain reputation, right? So that's another thing that we're looking into, which is building the ability for someone to go in and actually review what it's actually like to have partnered with that company and building that into the blockchain, right? So that you get that element of, you give them the anonymity, but at the same time, you can also have that sense of authenticity as well, which is really important when you're vetting partners. So that's, just for the audience, that's kind of things that we're building today. And, we'll share more of our roadmap on the Discord. But kind of getting back into the panel, when we talk about this idea of, partnerships in the new world, right? For example, you've seen it all, right? You've been in Web 1, Web 2, and now there's Web 3. As someone that, was at the C-suite of one of the biggest companies in the world, how are large companies seeing Web 3? Are they seeing it as an opportunity or are they seeing it as a threat?
So there's two reactions that I can sort of talk about. Right? One is they're closing their eyes and thinking it's going to go away. It doesn't. It's just a passing fad.
Yeah.
The others who understand the decentralized nature behind it and can look beyond the hype are worried, because this can change the hegemony of all the current relationships. I mean, it doesn't take too long to figure out. If you looked at enterprise software, not that long ago, looked at it as 10, 15 years ago, we used to call it the miso soup, which was Microsoft, IBM, SAP, and Oracle. Right? And Microsoft was considered the baby, which didn't have any clue about enterprise chops. It had to be taught how to keep its pants up. Now you come to the current world, and Magma, or whatever else you want to call it, from FANG to Microsoft is the old thespian, is the enterprise player. Not much has changed in terms of how they do things, but they are the enterprise player because everybody else is new to the game. And of course, IBM, SAP, and Oracle are considered, and not even considered, they're not part of the relevant conversation. They're part of large enterprise continuing operations, but they are not making any of these conversations. Right? So that's the change you see that's happening. And through that change, partnerships will change. This whole idea of anonymous partnerships, as you go towards a DAO, as you go towards this decentralized organizations, is going to throw all this off completely, throw monkey's wrench into everything that they've built. And they're not going to be able to cope with this. This is a threat to them. And
go for it.
Yeah, one other thing in this piece, the large enterprises, right? The C Corp has always come out ahead and has kept the spoils. Well, what we're now seeing, and if this is actually we can make this happen in W3 or Web3, is you're putting together the entrepreneurship that comes in an LLC and the sense of purpose that comes in an NGO. You're putting that together, and that's your DAO. That's how I see. That's my personal little opinion of how these two things have come together. You guys may differ, but I'll leave it at that.
I think so. I worked at Twitch, owned by Amazon, 2,500 employees, and I basically think there are two types of people that work in tech, and like these two types of people are at every industry, but in my career in tech over 10 years, and There are people that are excited about the future, and there are people that are focused on the present. And it's not judgmental of either. They're just different types of people. People that are excited about the future generally think about competitors, like, whoa, what are they doing? Or like, oh, what cool innovations are coming into our product, and like they're just fascinated by the industry and as it changes. And then people that are focused on the present are like mercenaries that are like, what is my job? I will do my job. And then things that are different that come in and change things, like change their job. And like this can be like person two, focus on the present, could be a PM. They could be a creative. Their job could be to be creative, but like there's a certain level of disruption that like they don't like. And so, and the bigger the company gets, the more of group two there are. And so like when I was at Twitch, I was ringing the bell the last year I was there about DeFi, NFTs. Everybody hated it. It didn't matter if you were the head of product and Mr. Genius, who thinks about the future and writes a bunch of angel checks into startups. Like everybody moonlights as a futurist on the side in tech, but like blockchain is this new thing, and like they didn't get it. And like the only people that get Web3 are people that actually fuck around in DeFi and NFTs. Nobody else really gets it. And like you can't actually read a bunch of blog posts and watch a bunch of videos and suddenly get Web3. You actually have to use these tokens and feel the feelings of the incentives. You have to feel like, what's it like to be proud to use some piece of software? Like it's a weird feeling, but like it's different. And like, you can't just say, trust me. And so like companies, even if the leadership is like, hey, everybody, I'm the head of product. We're now Web3. We're all doing this now. Your employees, it doesn't matter. Like you can't just force them to understand how to innovate in Web3. And so Web2 companies there's no way, unless they're like giving everyone like a weekly like stipend of ETH, and like they're doing weekly stand-ups, and they're like, everybody, what did you do? Like, we're all trying to make money. Like, what did you do to earn money in DeFi? And did you buy NFTs? If they're not doing that, there's no way. They hate crypto. And it's not because they like have an agenda against it. They hate it in the way that like nobody really actually cares about it yet. Like most people still think crypto is like Elon Musk, Doge, number go up, Bitcoin. I know some people have gotten Bitcoin rich, and here we are years later, it's up. Yeah. But like nobody knows what it does. They don't know that it's apps. And so like people that don't know it's apps, which is most people, and that's also like most people in tech still, they're like, what, it's apps? They have no idea. So bearish on Web2 companies.
That's Jason.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. I want to just share something really interesting as well, right? Because in my space, like in the Algorand ecosystem, the community, everyone is talking about the future, and we are trying to stay in the present, because we need to operate everything that's being talked about in the future. So it's a fine balance. Don't get me wrong. I'm a future focused person as well, but to try to actually make sure things don't break and things continue to run in my role puts me in a very interesting spot. But that's a very good perspective, Jason. Yeah.
I just want to add a comment here. I have a friend at Ubisoft, and if you're into gaming, you'd heard that they announced kind of this whole NFT platform. There was huge internal uproar, right? And what was most surprising to me is that, well, when we talk about NFTs and we talk about specifically gaming, microtransactions are by far the biggest revenue maker for traditional game publishers. It's the biggest. What are microtransactions? They're basically internet points that you give to buy stuff, right? And what blows my mind is that they have this pushback in NFTs, where what an NFT would do would give their purchases utility and value outside of their closed ecosystem. So that's just a great example, right, of where, to both Jason's points, where you can have a large company believing in the future. But because people are so entrenched in their old ways, they just push back against anything new.
Gamers, but like, I think the reason why everyone hates Ubisoft. Everyone hates So these are gamers who only hate changes to the game. And so, screw Ubisoft. Doesn't matter what they did. And like also, like NFTs, like to the people who don't love NFTs, what do they see? They see something that's kind of like loot box-y. Kind of like, it's kind of scammy looking from the outside. Like, oh, how typical. Look what Ubisoft jumped onto. They jumped onto the scary NFT thing. Screw them. And you know what, though? The thing is, though, gamers don't actually hate NFTs. They actually just don't They just haven't found like something that they get value from out of crypto yet. They're still in that previous camp I'm describing of like they don't realize there's apps here, and like they're trying to explain why they don't like crypto, and like they don't know why they don't like it, but they're trying to like. So what they say is the gobbledygook of like things people say to criticize crypto, like scams, crime, up to the environment. Like they pick one and they go, "This is why," and like there's a reason why tech companies hire scientists to figure this out, like because like we don't know, like we can't explain our own behavior.
You know what? When you talk about microtransactions and like NFTs, if you gave me a Fortnite skin that was NFT, I would love that.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I want that, right? It gives me access to an external economy.
They're already selling Counter-Strike skins for thousands of
Exactly.
dollars. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember World of Warcraft, but people were selling characters, right? They leveled up. Plots of land.
If it was DeFi, you could borrow against your guns.
Exactly. So I think it comes down to, once you put these things in people's hands, the perception will change. And that's why, I think a lot of people said we're early in crypto. We are early in crypto. And that's why the partnerships are also important as well, right? Because it helps you kind of broaden out the side of just the traditional crypto ecosystem. Algorand partnering with, the greenest sports racing team, right? That's a great example of like trying to get more mainstream adoption. And I'm sure we've all seen the crypto.com adverts everywhere.
It's great.
Ayaz, you look like you have something to say.
I think this will be more successful in industries or places that have not had any organized efforts in the past. We are seeing it in gaming. We'll see it in art. Art didn't have any digital rights management, and you're starting to see NFTs come in there. But in music, it might take a little longer because there's these industries recording studios that own a whole bunch of this. So now you have to go up against that whole hegemony of things. Let me give you a completely off-the-wall example. Take consulting companies, McKinsey or anybody else. Take a look at all these expert networks that are out there today. That everybody can sign up on their own and make some money on the side. And guess what? The platform's still making more money because they may be getting you as an expert for anywhere from $200 to $2,000, but they're probably charging 10 times that. So the next step in that is the evolution of that is a community of experts. You now build a community effort, which is everybody, the platform takes less than 5% of it. That's what it should be. Right? So I think we're all headed in the right direction. Decentralization has always been key. The thing is, technology has not been in place. Sometimes the social mores, take the current US housing market. I can actually I can tell you there's a clear use case of using a chain to transfer ownership from one to the other. It will take less than a few seconds, right? But we will destabilize the whole industry that sits in the middle, and there will be job loss, and we have got to figure out how to upskill and move them to other things. Otherwise, this will never work because there will be all kinds of government and political interference into this.
It's gonna happen.
Jason.
Yeah. Anyway.
It will happen. I believe it will happen. In fact, that's a clear use case. Why do I need like 30 days and 20 people in the middle? I don't. This is a microsecond transaction.
So do we have time for 2 more questions from the panelists? I think we've got some questions pouring in. All right. Thumbs up from everyone. So first one, I'm going to try and pronounce their name HK. This is for Jason Hitchcock. I'm going to write I'm going to say as he wrote it, or they wrote it. So she goes, wow, it sounds like finding the right partnerships is hard. How much effort and resource do large corporates deploy, and how do they measure ROI?
We had, like 70 people like that were like in our business development department, and like their goals changed every quarter, and like it was unclear, and like who they served was unclear. The philosophy of why and how to partner with other companies changes as your company grows, and like the needs of the surface area of needs of the different parts of the company change as well. Like every team will develop their own philosophy on what that team needs to do, from like how do they onboard a survey monkey to blast email to like finding an agency, to run the Twitter account for the one product, like that like the amount of things that you need like a third party to help you with gets so huge, and it's understandably it's never. I find like there's never like at least I've never seen like an equilibrium. It's always been like, what does the organization need now, and how do we approach that today?
And we have a question for Jason Lee. So from Cat Guy, how does Algorand think about using collaborations to grow, especially for developers? How important is it?
It's extremely important for us. In fact, for next year, being Christmas, New Year, 2021 ending, happy holidays, everyone. Next year, partnerships with developers are really key. We are working with dev shops, with incubator, accelerator programs, with like across the spectrum, because we realize that developers are actually the lifeblood towards a tech organization or Web3 organization. So if we don't put them at the forefront of what we're doing, we're not going to meet objectives we want to do. In fact, next year, as part of our hiring plan, we're going to almost double up, and quite a sizable number would be in developer sort of growth, supporting developer growth, or in sort of the marketing and partnerships area. So it's just reflective of what the year will look like next year.
So it's actually a question for me now, right? So what sectors are you looking at when it comes to development?
I think the DeFi infrastructure scaling is still nascent in DeFi 2.0.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an area that we're really focused on. The NFT space as well, not just in the collectible art space, but just this broad spectrum of NFT as a concept has so much space for growth. The other ones that are quickly emerging extremely fast are DAOs, GameFi, the gaming space, play to earn space, and those areas are something that we cannot we need to keep up with, right? But in terms of DeFi is really still just heating up in the 2.0 space. So these are just a general microcosm of space of where we are. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I know there's probably plenty of more questions from the audience, but unfortunately it's going to have to be a wrap for today. We do plan on hosting ongoing frequent AMAs with great people from the industry. Who knows, we might see a repeat visit from some of the people on this panel, so have your questions ready. And I just want to say thank you again to the panelists who participated, especially because it's just before Christmas. I know everyone's busy, so thank you again for making time.
Take care, guys. Thanks, everyone.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So glad to be here as well. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. All right.
See you guys. Bye.